Hi there. As I mentioned in class, I was going to spend a little bit more time on this poster here to kind of just push it a little bit further to see what I can do to make it a little bit more interesting. Um, and you know, I'm a little bit of a loss. I'm just kind of going like, I don't really know what to do from here. You know, that's normal. We don't just, have every idea ready to go right away. So that's why the research part of doing a project is so important, because the more you look at different things, the more ideas you get, and things that you see will just kind of start generating your own ideas. So it doesn't mean that you have to copy other people's ideas, but as soon as you start looking at lots of different ideas, that's going to give you ideas, and your idea will then move forward. So what I'm going to do to kind of prime my pump and see what I can come up with that can, be a good idea to use here, I'm going to just go look at some other typographical posters. And so I just did a Google search for typographic posters, and you can see that there's tons of stuff to look through here. A lot of it goes out and beyond the requirements for this poster right here. But still, it can give you some kind of interesting ideas. Like you could do a clipping mask and put some text inside of a shape if you wanted to. This is kind of cool right here. It doesn't just have letters, but you could build something out of letters if you wanted to. There's lots of interesting things. Look at this one here. Taking this G and just really enlarging it like this, and then putting some of the text on an angle. Just kind of breaking out of some of those rules that we've talked about to make it, interesting, but still with type. But you can also be, a little bit more constrained and keep things nice and organized, but use hierarchy to make things interesting, like this one here is doing, for example, with just a few letters. But, if you just had, you could kind of create a poetic thing from the rule, so to speak, right? And another good place to just look at things, of course, is Pinterest. We check that out for the invitations. Behance also, I just went to Behance and I searched typographical posters, and some of these have images on them, but it still gives me good ideas on what to do with type. And what's great about Behance is that there's usually a lot of student work in here too. So, and those type of assignments tend to be a little bit similar sometimes. You will see a lot of type classification posters right here. Those are common student projects type posters. This one right here, I thought was kind of interesting. You can see how this one is kind of just using, again, hierarchy and the shapes of the letters and the size of it to kind of create a, a glass right here, but it still has the text in here to make a point. There's one right there. You can see that one looks like a drinking glass as well. So, yeah, so, take a look, if you're stuck and if you don't feel like it's getting very creative and interesting, cruise around a little bit on the internet, or just keep your eyes open as you're walking around your daily life. You might see things that will inspire you and give you an idea. So as I was looking through these just right before I started recording, I actually, I thought, how is this going to work with my rule with paragraphs? How is that going to work? So it wasn't anything that I saw here, but it just kind of got my mind going a little bit when I saw some of these large letters. Like, that's one of the things I really like, is kind of cropping out a letter. So I saw it here, I saw it here, I saw it here. And so I went back to my poster and I started thinking, okay, is there any kind of letter or anything here that I can do that with? And, I thought I can do the R, but what does the R have to do with it? And then I thought, paragraphs. There is actually a glyph that is a paragraph, right? A paragraph symbol. So I'm going to go to the glyphs, and I'm going to find that paragraph symbol. It's this one right here. So I'm going to take my text tool right here, and then you have to have the text tool open for the glyphs to work. And then I'm going to double click on that, and then that gives me that paragraph symbol right there. It's super small because it's only 12 point right here, right? So I'm just going to hold down Shift and make it a little bit larger. And then I'm going to do Shift Command O, which is the shortcut for type and create outlines. You can see it right there, right? So now I have created outlines. So now it's an easier shape for me to work with. And I'm going to make it big because I love having it big. And let's see where I'm going to put it though. Maybe here, and then the round of that works with the round of that. Black, of course, is not going to work, and I'll need to have my text here on top of it so that I can see it. So let's see what kind of color I can come up with, and maybe I'll do transparencies a little bit. The white is so stark right here, but I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit so we can kind of see it through, see the other colors through there. So that becomes kind of interesting, right? And it seems like I can still read that text right there, but I don't know if it just becomes a lot going on right here with these two overlapping and some of the text interfering there. So not so happy with that. So I'm just going to add a line break to make this text not bump into this other area right here. So let's see where's a good line break. Clearly indicate paragraphs, but be careful not to upset. That's probably a good place to put it. The integrity and visual consistency of the text. Maybe, no, let's go back. Let me do it after integrity instead. That will be a little bit more better, even things. And then now that I have 3 lines, I need to move that down a little bit. And it doesn't look like it's, I need to have my, my guides show again, because you can see right here, like things aren't quite lining up perfectly right there. I need to move that over so that my text is lining up perfectly. If you're gonna line things up, you gotta have it perfect, or otherwise it doesn't really even do its job, right? Because if it's almost there but not quite there, then that's when you start having issues and it kind of feels random. So that should go up there and line up as well. The R. Remember that you're lining up the text, not the text box, because there's always a little bit buffer space between the letters and the text box. So make sure it's the letters that you're lining up, not the text box. Okay, so now this yellow line here too, seems like it fits all right over there. And it's a little bit close right there maybe, so let me see what I can do. Let's go out here. There we go, now I have it. Maybe I can just kind of, this doesn't have to fit with the grid, right? Because this is one of those, my rule breaking piece that's kind of work outside of the grid to be a little bit more interesting. Maybe it needs to be a little bit smaller. I want a little bit more space over there. Okay, now that feels good. Let me take off the grid and see. Okay, so now this is the only part where I'm not really happy. I think that this gap is too big right here. And again, it's getting too busy. So I'm just gonna ignore the grid and move this over to where it actually feels comfortable to me. Okay, so now we're seeing the rule right there. Indenting and inserting, okay. And maybe, are these lined up? Maybe sometimes you have to use an alignment tool to, yeah, now they're lined up. It didn't look quite right. I'm going to move them down a little bit too. Might not be right in the grid, but just for comfort. You know, you can start with the grid, and then if you turn it off, then you might want to make adjustments just so that it's visually balanced a little bit better. And then since this one is showing one of the ways and this one is showing the other way, I want to kind of emphasize that concept. So I'm going to highlight inserting additional space, because that's what I'm doing in this paragraph. So I'm going to change that to bold so that it kind of explains that. And then I'm going to, on here, I'm going to say, I'm going to do indenting as the bolded. Okay. So hopefully that just makes a little bit more sense right here. And I'm going to actually take out this rule 14 because I have that up there. So that feels a little redundant. Okay. All right. So this also kind of shows to me that, you know, having the extra space to me feels like a nicer way to separate the paragraphs, because if we see this example right here, look at that little weird change that happens right there with the widow and then the next paragraph. But I probably should try to avoid that widow as well, especially since, you know, that's one of our rules. So one of the ways to avoid widows is that you can add a little bit of tracking to your text. And sometimes that will help. Let's see how much I have to add for that. There we go. If that looks okay. Yeah, it does. Then that helps out. So let's see. So 16, and then I want to be consistent in both of my paragraphs of text right here. So I can either change that to 16, or I can use my little eyedropper tool to apply the same settings. Let's see if it does it with the, I think it does. Yeah, but it took out my bolded part right there because it just did it to whatever I was clicking the eyedropper on. So I could have just changed that to 16 instead. Now I have to go in and highlight indenting again, make that bold. And then the typical thing happened to me here. I tried to get rid of this widow, so I added the tracking, and then when I did it to the other paragraph, I got an even worse widow right here, which is a hyphenated widow. That's always even worse. So what if let's see if I can, I'm going to click both of these, and then I'm going to work on my tracking. I can look at both of them together to see. I have to go clear up to 27. I don't think I like that. So what if I instead change my font size? Have it go up to 25. Nope, then let's have it go down instead then. There we go. Nope, now we have that text widow. That's going to take a lot of fixing. Problem solving needed. Okay, what if I make it tighter? Now at 23 point and no extra tracking. Seems like that solved any of that problems. Feels a little bit tight now, so maybe now I'll add a little bit of leading instead. That shouldn't change any of my widows or anything, but it will spread the text out a little bit and make it kind of visually fill up the space a little bit better. Okay. So you can see how you can just go in there and with all of the different tools that you have in your character panel, your sizes, your leading, your tracking, you can make your text kind of do what you want it to do in the composition. So now I feel much better about these two paragraphs. They feel like they're better balanced. They're not interfering You know, over here it's not as busy. Not maybe a little bit difficult to read it over here, but after all, this is more for visual effect rather than actually reading things. And if you want the context, you can read it right here. So, all right, so now I feel a little bit better about it. I probably could be even more creative if I wanted to, but I think that, you know, just adding this piece right here, working a little bit more on these lines right here kind of did the trick for me. So I'm going to save it here. And then we can take out this part right here. And then I'm going to save it as a PDF, right? So going over to File, Save As, and that's because I'm an Illustrator. If I was in InDesign, sorry, you can hear my little dog Odie itching here. If I was in InDesign, you'd have to export. Nice thing about InDesign is you can preview it with cutting out anything that you're bleeding out too. Here, I will have to wait until I do my PDF to see that. So here we go. It's saving as the right name. And if you had more than one artboard, you'd have to make sure you choose the right artboard. I'm going to save it. And I don't have to use the Illustrator editing capabilities. I always check the View PDF after saving so that I can take a look at it right away and I don't submit anything blindly. I double check my marks and bleeds so that I don't have any of these checked. I don't want to have any trim marks or anything showing. I want it to show exactly like the finished product. So now I'm good, and I'm going to save the PDF. It warns me that I can't edit it when I'm done. That's okay because I have my Illustrator file. And here we go. Now, see, now when I'm looking at it, there is like this little white edge right here, right? That I didn't really want. That wasn't intentional. So I need to go back to my document, and I can't really see it here, so that's a little bit strange. I don't know why that is, but I'll just bleed this yellow background out a little bit more, and hopefully that will take care of it. Maybe I'll have to again make this just a little bit smaller so that it I want it to bleed out. Maybe I'll just bleed it out so that it actually bleeds over that edge too. Then I won't have to worry about having a weird little sliver there. So, okay, so I'm going to resave it. Oh, you know what I did now? Okay, so back here, I made the changes. I saved it, and look, it saved it as the PDF. So now the last version that I'm looking at is my PDF, not my Illustrator file. And then if you make changes, that's not making changes on your Illustrator file, it's making changes on your PDF. So if you see anything being an issue when you're previewing your PDF, you have to actually close that PDF, make sure you get rid of that. That's another file there. And then close this. Go back to your Illustrator file. You can do open recent files. And then here's my assignment as an Illustrator file. Okay, so now I have to make those changes that I did before when it was a PDF that was open. I'm going to stretch that out, make sure I have a good bleed on my yellow there. And then I decided I wanted to enlarge this paragraph symbol right here. Okay, so that goes right at the top there. I think I want to have a little bit of the white showing there so that it kind of becomes a little bit more clear what the what the shape is. So now I can resave. So I resaved the Illustrator file. It doesn't have the little star anymore. And then I resaved my PDF. So save as, and I'll choose PDF again. Save it, And now I have to replace it because I had that old PDF, right? I'm gonna take that off again. And that's basically just saving me some space. It becomes a little bit smaller if I don't have those editing capabilities. All right, that seems like it took care of that little white edge. And all right, looks pretty cool, pretty happy about it. So then I have my poster ready to submit. So hopefully that gave you some additional ideas and tips. And I really look forward to what you create for your final poster. Keep in mind, if you push this and just work on it, you know, don't be afraid. I would rather see you kind of go out of the bounds a little bit here than being too careful. This is a great time to experiment and push things a little bit. You can always revise it even after the class is over for your portfolio. So, all right, good luck. And yeah, again, looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with.